You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Just 5 races to go now in the IndyCar series for 2023, and it's its final stride on the streets of Nashville. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Racing World. Well, the NTT INDYCAR series and the INDY NXT, presented by Firestone series, returned to the streets of Nashville for the 3rd time since the series started going there. And a big announcement during the week, of course, was the fact that, first of all, there's big changes coming to the circuit due to the development mainly of the NFL football team, the Tennessee Titans, and their stadium being redeveloped over the next few years, which would impact on the course. So there is a new downtown street course that goes down the famous Honky Tonk Row in Broadway. So in many ways, this is just me speaking this, but in many ways, IndyCar now has its version of Las Vegas that Formula One has, because the downtown area of Nashville is pretty spectacular, loaded with bars and honky-tonk places and great dining options and all sorts of things. And the race will go right down those streets starting from next year onwards. I have it on pretty good authority that a certain Tony Cotman that you'll see in the documentary Kiwis Born to Fly is the developer of this new race circuit. I know he was very keen when we talked to him in June about doing this track, so I can only assume that he's jumped on board, and it'll be another spectacular circuit, and it will still go over the famous bridge as well. So big developments coming for the circuit and the city of Nashville in 2024 and beyond. And the other thing, of course, that was announced on race week was the fact that Nashville will round out the series next year. The race, or the championship series, finishes in Laguna Seca again this year, but from next year onwards, it will finish on the downtown streets of Nashville. So I think that's probably quite a good way. I'm just worried about the fact that the races may not be seen as much on the West Coast. There's talk of where Laguna may or may not slot in. So there's a lot of things that will shape up the 24 calendar yet, but what we do know is that Nashville will end the series for the next few years. So that's the first big announcement from IndyCar about 2024. So onwards to the race weekend, I was across multiple Zoom press conferences across the weekend for IndyCar and INDY NXT. Starting out with IndyCar, and in practice, one of the things I got to ask Will Power about was the famous bridge, but there was a lot of talk too from him about just how good Nashville will be as the season ender and what a spectacular sight it is going down Broadway. And there was a lot of hint about maybe some of the sights that we'd seen in many years ago now on the Gold Coast, and that was a topic of conversation within the press conference as well.
I was blown away at the announcement yesterday. I actually didn't know that we'd be going down what's the name of the street? Broadway. Yeah. That's pretty special. It's pretty cool. It'll be a big finale. There'll be a lot of celebration afterwards with all those bars around.
With some of the people that go to those places on Broadway, is it going to be kind of hard to not see some of the lunacy of people hanging out the windows or whatever during a race?
Yeah, no, I think if you're looking up there, you're in a bit of trouble, but but it could be like Australia, where there's a lot of flashing going on, naked people.
The Surfer's Paradise thing.
Yeah. Did you ever get to go to that one? Oh man, you track walk on Thursday. It's just, naked people on balconies everywhere. It's like almost a competition.
Okay, David Turner, can you confirm any Surfer's Paradise stories?
Well, actually, I was going to start with that. Being a New Zealander, that was always part of the highlight of going to Australia, to walk down the beach, and I'm sure Will will understand that phrase. It was always a spectacular view, and I'm not talking about the racing.
Yeah, no, I get you. You have a question, David?
Yes, I do. Back to the racing part. Well, I heard during the radio network broadcast this morning during practice a comment that I haven't heard before, and I just wondered if you could maybe comment to me on that. And Davey Hamilton mentioned how the track drives differently when you go over the bridge as opposed to when you come back over the bridge. Do you notice a difference yourself?
It's the seam is a lot harsher coming back away from the city. And it seems you get a lot more bottoming heading to the braking zone. Just slightly different. You're probably going further off the bridge. That's why you go into a dip and sort of bottoms even more.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not, they're they're harsh bumps coming off the second time over. It's hard. You feel it.
Okay, that's great. Great to see you again, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time. And all the best for the race weekend.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Never short of a word, Will, and I enjoy talking to him. He's got a great sense of humour. It might be a bit dry at times, but it is really good, and you get an honest statement from him always. That's one thing for sure. Onward then to qualifying, and the weather changed dramatically on Saturday for qualifying. There was heavy rain. It actually cancelled the INDY NXT qualifying session, and they were ultimately to start in their championship points order for the race on Sunday in Nashville. And for IndyCar, it was a kind of sit out and wait session to see what would happen with the weather, and finally it got underway. Got to talk to the pole sitter, Kiwi Scott McLaughlin. I'm interested to know, during the practice session this morning, did you, or was it mandated that you ran the new rain deflector piece of add-on bodywork?
I'm not sure if it was on or not, Dave. Yeah, just sort of hopped in and got going, but I didn't really look at that. But it was, I mean, I was very impressed with the tire, to be honest. Like, I felt like I had a lot of grip. And for those conditions, I think it was the absolute perfect conditions for our tire before, obviously, we stopped and there was a lot of water on the track. So the deflector, I'm not sure. The visibility was just as what I would expect if we had, that much rain on the track. But yeah, I can't comment on that 100%.
And then just in terms of overall grip level, bearing in mind that there is the possibility that it could rain again tomorrow, is there a lot of road markings on the course in terms of paint and stuff that come into play on the racing line, or are you kind of clear of that most of the time?
It's not too bad. There's a couple little pedestrian crossings and some lines going down to turn 4, but I was surprised, the grip was there, and when we went across those. So, yeah, I was, like I said, pleasantly surprised with the overall grip level of the track, and they weren't really too much of an issue.
Oh, that's great. Great. Congratulations to both of you. Great front row, and looking forward to seeing what happens tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be a great race, and catching up with you again in a few weeks' time as well. Well, McLaughlin going into this race with high expectations after a very, very close second place finish last year to Kiwi Scott Dixon as well. So a lot of expectations for McLaughlin. He certainly seems to adapt to the circuit and own certain parts of the circuit as well. He looked very, very strong in the Penske car. And the big thing with Nashville is that anything's possible, and that's exactly what we saw during the race. There was an early yellow for David Malukas, which looked like a rear wing failure on the Dale Coyne machine. Then the race kind of developed into what has been the longest green flag stretch ever in Nashville. And McLaughlin took good care of his alternative tyres at that stage, more than anybody else did. Pitted at the right time, came into a lot of traffic when he came back onto the track, and that pushed him back down through the field a bit. Ultimately, what it did see is it saw Kirkwood get into the lead. Then we had a flurry of yellow flags near the end, and even a red flag, and then a 7-lap dash to the end of the race, which kind of took a little bit away from the finish of the race. Would it have changed? I don't know. The person who benefited the most from this was Alex Palou, because he was in deep, deep trouble due to the strategy that they were on, and there was absolutely no way he was going to get to the finish without having another pit stop, and he would have fallen from the third that he did finish in to down in the low teens, early 20s, and that would have hurt his championship run without a doubt. As for the other Kiwis, Dixon was up there all the time, finished 5th, and a great run from Marcus Armstrong. Very hard day. He showed fantastic form during certainly the 2 practice sessions, got a bit caught out again due to the weather situation and things like that. But Armstrong again is very, very strong. He's shown why he belongs in the IndyCar series, and I think it's great. The thing that he needs to watch out for now in terms of the hunt for the Rookie of the Year championship is he needs to score big points at Indy next weekend when they go back to the road course there, because then he misses the Gateway Oval, and Canapino is kind of within just enough of a range to be an annoyance in terms of chasing for that Rookie of the Year title. So fingers crossed for Armstrong on that one. Anyway, onwards to the race, and it was a good race, as I said, but in the end it was Kyle Kirkwood taking out his 2nd race win of this season, the first, of course, coming earlier in the year on the streets of Long Beach.
Phenomenal afternoon. I mean, we absolutely nailed everything. It felt like, to be honest, we had a great strategy. Car was extremely fast. Through the entire race, I feel like we were probably one of the fastest cars. I haven't looked back at it yet. have no idea, but I assume we were. And Andretti Autosport, AutoNation Honda keep giving me a car that's super good on street courses. I feel like this should be more than just 2 wins, to be honest, on street courses, given the cars that they've given me. But I'm thrilled with this one here today. You know, this is kind of redemption from last year. We just had a dumb incident, and redemption from Toronto, redemption from Detroit. I mean, this one feels good, no doubt. It doesn't feel as good as the first one. That first one was absolutely amazing at Long Beach, but no, this is a step in the right direction. This helps us in our championship, get us back in the top 10 range, I imagine. So this was a phenomenal day for Andretti Autosport on the 27 car.
But for McLaughlin, he was a gracious runner-up, if you like. You know, he's a sportsman at the end of the day. He is disappointed. He looked very tired at the end of the race due to the high humidity. But the one thing that you can't take away from him is he is a genuine sportsman.
We didn't take the yellow. Kyle did. I mean, I think if I could have got past Grosjean maybe a little earlier, put some more pressure on Kyle, because I felt like I could have passed him maybe when he was on greens before he pitted. But that was just swings around. Like, that was just how it is. You can't. I'm pretty stoked with the result. I'm just, bummed that maybe I couldn't have too much of a shootout at the end. Just with my restart. Like I said, my restart was bad, but I probably said too much. I'm in trouble. All good.
How many pounds do you need to lose to wear the
I
clothes?
don't know, man. Oh, how many do I have to lose? Yeah. Well, it's 15 pounds. I think the system.
Doesn't seem like you could lose.
Oh man, I've already lost 20. So when I came here, I'm still fat. So, well, yeah. But I want to have a beer tonight and McDonald's. So
I think
that'll.
the way to lose weight.
What's that?
That's not the way to lose.
No.
But
I mean,
I'll join you.
I've been
for
like
the
this my
McDonald's.
whole life. Like, I've always been the heavy kid, and it's just annoying. Like, you can go and have like a pie tonight and be fine.
What?
Like, what do you weigh?
160.
Yeah, see, yeah. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like right on the number.
Onwards then to Indy NXT. Now, I think that this championship will go to the wire as opposed to the IndyCar one, which could finish by Portland, but I think the Indy NXT one will go all the way to Laguna. Andretti Autosport traditionally have strong cars at Laguna, so from a Kiwi point of view, that favours Hunter McElrea, but time will tell. But it was a great performance from McElrea. A little bit miffed over how the qualifying worked out, but that's how it worked out, and that's what it is. So the team started, or drivers started in championship order based on the fact that they didn't get to qualify. So it wasn't based on a practice time, it was based on championship order, and that's firmly in the rule book. For McElrea, however, it was a podium visit yet again, second step of the podium, and that's good points haul going into these next few races. He's very strong at Indianapolis on the road course, which he'll be again in a couple of days' time. And we saw him there in May, and I think he could get some more points out of that and put him in contention for a good final swing at this championship.
I would say all of us are pretty reasonably friendly, but at the same time, we're all racing for our career. So we have a good respect, I would say, from my end anyway. I can't speak for them, but I'll race them really hard. Yeah, I know that. But I race them really hard, but how I would expect to be raced back, which you actually can't say for everyone on the field. So that's what I've got to say about that. It's been a really weird season for me. Like, you look at my race results, and it's like every weekend I finish in the top 5, basically. But the path to that has been like stupid. It's been every weekend has been something. I found every way not to get a good result this year. So it's been frustrating because we've had all the ingredients pretty much constantly, and it just hasn't clicked yet. But again, we're still there. So I still believe in myself. I believe in the team, and we have some really good events coming up. IndyGP was a really, a track that I always seem to have good pace at, and Gateway, I think we topped that test, and the last event seemed like a good spot to get it going.
Well, really good to see Hunter back up on that podium, and he deserves that. He's driven hard all year. He's had ups and downs, but that's how championships work. And, as I said, I think that there's a strong run towards the end, and certainly the Andretti cars will be very well prepared for Laguna. Just before we finish the IndyCar thing, if you look at Alex Palau and how this championship's going to play itself out now with 4 races to go, basically, based on my simple maths, and I could be a bit wrong here, but we'll just assume that I'm close, he can finish 9th or better in all 4 remaining races and still win this championship. However, it's dependent largely on where Newgarden finishes and then slightly where Dixon finishes. Going into Nashville, there was 12 drivers that were still mathematically in contention for this championship. Post Nashville, there are 8. Newgarden obviously is the biggest threat. Dixon's still there. And right behind Dixon now is McLaughlin. So you never know, but they are becoming slightly more mathematical all the time. But for Palau, yes, a 9th or better at the moment will seal the championship over the next 4 races. But that's not the way Alex drives, and we wouldn't expect it either. Okay, onwards to something else that I was talking about last week, and that's Las Vegas and Formula One. And isn't it strange all of a sudden, however, that IndyCar have a season-ending race in effectively the Las Vegas of the Midwest, if you like, Nashville, next year. So I don't hope that IndyCar are copying what Formula One's doing, because IndyCar is strong enough in its own vein to do whatever it needs to do. So let's just hope that that didn't come into the equation. But looking at Formula One, and just a subject that I did touch on, and that's the Las Vegas Formula One Grand Prix for November. Now, the first thing for anyone who lives in New Zealand and you understand this, man, oh man, can they put a street course together in Vegas in terms of the roads that they're doing and the repaving. So I was there for 2 nights back in June. And over that section of nights, which you'll see in this video that I've got here, they completely repaved an entire section of the strip. They did the whole thing. They ground it up, dug it, leveled it, and resealed it in a matter of 2 days. And it was a very, very impressive thing. Walked a fair bit of it, and it's ultra, ultra smooth. The cost aspect, obviously, that's a big debate right now with the city of Las Vegas and Liberty Media and Formula One and everything, because the cost is blowing out. And as I mentioned last week, the structure and occupancy deals that they're now trying to enforce on owners inside the circuit will be something to see how the locals react to that. The other part of the complex, the pit lane complex, we got as close as we could for that, and as you can see in these photos, it's a massive piece of building that will host, you know, the VIP areas, the entire pit lane. This land is actually owned by Liberty Media. They bought this land, and that's a long-term investment, obviously, by them to be there, because let's face it, there's not much you can do with a used Formula One garage area, is there? So the intention is to be there for a long time, but that is a piece of land owned by Liberty Media, and that will, you know, be the entire pit lane area for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Big, big investment, big hunk of land, as you can see in the photos, and it, you know, will transform the thing. These photos were taken in June. Grand Prix, of course, is in November, and it will certainly be very spectacular, but the price aspect of it is phenomenal. So just as an example, because obviously I'm not going to be there in November and couldn't afford to be even if I wanted to be, I bought the traditional Las Vegas inaugural Formula One Grand Prix t-shirt, and I have to admit it was at Las Vegas prices. So that worked out at about $70 odd New Zealand for a miserable t-shirt, but that's about as close as I'm going to get to the Las Vegas Formula One Grand Prix. But yeah, we've got the souvenir for the first ever Grand Prix there on the streets of Las Vegas, and it will be very, very spectacular. So looking forward to seeing that.
Hey, I'm Scott McLaughlin, driver for Team Penske. Kiwis born to fly on Sky Sport.
Okay, moving on, just before we wrap up the show today, don't forget the Kiwis Born to Fly documentary screening on Sky Sport New Zealand for people who are watching this in New Zealand, and hope you enjoy that. It's an insight into the many, many talents that New Zealand has within the NTT INDYCAR series and the greater motorsport industry within the Indianapolis area. And there's some people that I'm actually very humbled by them when I get to talk to them and meet them. They've dedicated their entire lives to motorsport, and the talents that they have, ranging from guys that work on dampers on cars to team engineers to guys that do data, and they all came from New Zealand. And I think for a little old country, we don't do too bad. And obviously we've got drivers up there as well. SVG, of course, at Indianapolis this weekend coming. It'd be very good to see how he goes in a truck, aka a ute, if you like, in the NASCAR sense, and then also the NASCAR Cup car itself as well, so on the road course. The truck, however, is on the oval, rumour has it, so that will be very interesting to see. And then looking for IndyCar, they've obviously got their race there. It's quite different to how they were in May, because the temperatures are vastly different to how they were in May, or should be, so that will be interesting. And then the INDY NXT cars. INDY NXT have a very hard schedule. It's a one-day event for them. They practice, qualify, race all in the same day, so that's a massive ask for those guys. So yeah, big weekend ahead, and we'll report on that next week. And also on next week's show, I've got 2 of the 2023 Motorsport New Zealand Elite Academy drivers joining me for a bit of a Zoom chat. And we'll talk about life as an Elite Academy graduate, if you like, and give you an insight into these next couple of people that I've got anyway on the growing talent in motorsport in New Zealand. And I think that that'll be a good watch for you. So I'm looking forward to presenting that. Until then, I just enjoy your motor racing, enjoy this show. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. It really helps. I'm trying to grow this thing, and it's been a passion project for a very long time. So I do hope that you enjoy the podcast. Continue to get more information, and looking forward to these final 4 races in the IndyCar season, because I think there's more to come, that's for sure. And don't forget, every single season since he started in this game, Scott Dixon has won at least 1 race. He hasn't so far this season, so it's got to be coming. And as at today at Nashville, he now ties for the longest consecutive start streak in IndyCar history with Tony Kanaan. So if he starts next weekend's Grand Prix back at Indianapolis, he will be the longest consecutive streak of starts ever in IndyCar. So another record book, or another record for Kiwi Scott Dixon, and certainly a great legend, great ambassador for the country, great ambassador for the sport. So as I said, take care. We'll see you again next week on Racing World.